All right, welcome everyone to today's session where I thought it was appropriate just to provide a bit of an update about what the work we've been doing in concert with BGL around our SMSF document solution. And as the invitation had initially expressed to you, you received this email either because you are one of our members that are naturally using documents and using the BGL suite of products, whether that's Simple Fund by itself or Simple Fund and CAS 360. And when I went back, we actually haven't done any sort of update like this probably since, it was definitely pre-COVID. So it was an opportunity for us to really share with you what has been going on. We have been very busy over this period in continuing to drive the number of documents into the system, and I'll go through just in a very brief set of slides here, where we have been, what we have been working on and what we are going to continue to work on in our roadmap. And one of the things that you may have noticed as well, if you've sort of been following this journey, is that each and every time that BGL is releasing their product updates, so they do 3-week sprints, we have now aligned our development team in accordance with BGL, and each and every sprint cycle, you are now seeing more and more and more documents evolving. And that's really come about because we did spend a lot of heavy lifting at the very beginning of this year, trying to build a way in which we could really accelerate the way in which we can get the documents in, and then obviously build on the features as well. So again, today is really to share with you some of that work that we've been doing. If you haven't really followed, you may have registered sometime earlier in the year where we didn't obviously have a lot of documents there, but you will see quite clearly now that it is changing and changing pretty rapidly. So again, most of you would be aware of who we are and what we do, so I won't necessarily go through this in much detail, but the thing that is most important to note is that we do have a very deep set of SMSF documents available. And whilst we have sort of 15, 16 documents currently on Simple Fund 360, it is a subset at this stage of the 60 plus that we have on our Smarter SMSF website. And it is our goal over the course of probably the rest of this calendar year to have virtually all of those that are continue to be relevant on and in and inside both Simple Fund 360 and or CAS 360. And again, I'll talk to some of those things as well. And we will continue to, and as you will have seen with the introduction of the COVID documents that we put in place, all of these documents are produced in-house by not only myself, but business partner Ian Glenister, who's the lawyer, and also what we refer to as our document counsel. So we do have a couple of other individuals that we do work with, lawyers, SMSF specialists, that really help collate or put together and construct these documents. A lot of it initially driven by myself, but also just making sure that everything lines up in accordance with what we understand, and the other rules, for example, that we might have around the operation of the SMSF. So going back to the trust deed, it may be LRBAs or maybe some other form of document constitution and the like. So we have had this integration for some time on our own platform, but of course this has now been embedded into Simple Fund 360, and we are in a fortunate position where we have been chosen as that preferred document provider. And we are going to continue to really work on and embed not only onto a documents page in Simple Fund 360, but really start processes from within different areas of the software. So for example, if you are setting up a pension within the pension area, the idea is we will get to the fact that you'd then be able to produce documents from that area rather than having to go over to the documents area and then creating those as well. Now we do have a large number of people who have subscribed on a PAYG basis. But what we're now also starting to find is many of you are starting to understand the benefits of what that subscription model can take and get the benefit, I guess, not only just of what's in BGL, but also leverage all the documents that we do have across on the Smarter SMSF site. And one of the features that we updated only in the past week is that you now get visibility based upon your login of not only what you may have ordered on our site, but also in Simple Fund 360. So whichever site you've actually registered on, you will actually be able to see all the documents based upon that email address that is linked to that. So as I've mentioned before, in terms of what we now do is we have that key alignment into the Simple Fund 360 team. So we work very closely with Matt Crofts and his team, Warren and his team as well with CAS 360. You'll see a little bit more coming out over the next couple of weeks. And for those of you that don't know, BGL work in 3-week sprint cycles. So the last release on the 9th of July, the next one coming up is the 30th. And over the past probably 3 sprint cycles, so 9 weeks or so, you would have seen Smarter SMSF appear quite regularly on the splash page and the release notes that are coming out about this sort of continual evolution of documents that are coming on. So we now have 16 SMSF documents available in there, and we are adding 3 to 4 per document sprint. So we are literally in this final sprint finishing off what we are calling our pension set. So we released 4 pension related documents in the last set. We've got 3 that are happening right now. We've actually just released 2 of those already. And the other important thing to note from this is that we did survey many of the users that we had on site within our subscriber base that were BGL clients about what we would refer to as a minimum viable product approach, or whether the expectation is that someone wouldn't use the integration until it sort of gave us a complete car. And interestingly, from that, we had about 48% said, well, no, we want a fully integrated whiz-bang solution. 52% said, look, as long as we've got a minimum product that we can use and then it continues to evolve, we would actually see that as a huge advantage. And whilst we would have liked something that was far more, I guess, gave us a far more definitive result, what it did tell us is that we've got 52% of the audience would like to see it come on board now and evolve. So what you will see as we work through different documents is that we never roll out a document as a scooter that you can see on the bottom left there. That is in essence just a form, and you would need to fill out all of the information in that form to then be able to utilize it. So as an absolute minimum in our approach, you will always be able to fill in information that relates to the fund, the trustees, and the member. So we're talking about names, addresses, and that sort of information. And it's then only once we look at the way in which APIs exist, or whether the APIs don't exist and need to be developed with the APIs team at BGL, who's run by Jeevan, it then allows us to move on to the motorbike, the car, and the car might end up being a Ferrari, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a very stepped approach. So we do rely upon your feedback as well for ideas and the way in which we can continue to evolve our documents as well. But at this stage, as I said, it's certainly something that we are, as an absolute minimum, you have that pre-filled approach of the data that you do have in there. And then we would continue to evolve up those documents each and every time. So I just wanted to share with you just some of that minimum product, a minimum viable product concept, and then what we've done. So for example, the new SMSF is far more advanced than what we were looking at here as a bike. So we are probably at the motorbike, but we could certainly go even further. So when you establish a new SMSF using the Smarter SMSF platform here, not only is it going to produce the documents for you around the deed, the applications for membership and the like, it is also then going to post that information back and create that new SMSF inside Simple Fund 360. And that is going to give you and set up the fund name, the code, the establishment date, Smarter SMSF as the provider, the date the deed was prepared, the trustee information, fund member details, and the documents that it generates posts those documents back into the documents area for the client. So what we were doing initially is we tried to build out to that effect, and obviously it's going to slow down the amount of time that it would take for us to get documents on board. So that was one of the lessons that we learned very early on here, is that yes, it would be fantastic if we could build to that level from the very beginning, but what we want to be able to do is evolve this for you to the point that we will eventually get to there in certain areas of the product documents and the events that happen with SMSF clients. So a good example here again is that we've now got our special purpose company incorporation in here, and once that generates, so we have the ASIC integration piece ourselves here, and then you can post that information back to CAS 360. Now, one of the things that you will see probably in the next sprint of CAS 360, for those that are CAS 360 users, is that you can now, you will be able to, I should say, order your company through CAS 360. So use CAS as the ASIC interface, and so use the wizard to set all that information up, and then you'll be able to generate the constitution, which will request that information from our site and then post that constitution back, so you've got your complete workflow inside Simple Fund 360. So again, version 1 of that will deal with subscriptions. Then separately to that, we're going to have to build out a payment gateway to deal with that information as well. But again, that's that evolution that you can see here, that we continue to work very closely with the team. So all those others that you can see there are very much a byproduct of, let's get the data out of the software, whether it's fund level, trustee level, member level. Some of the information allows us to get transaction level as well. There are some limitations. So our pension commencement, we're still working with the API team to get more information. And the COVID documents, again, and hopefully many of you have taken advantage of that. The numbers have been quite extraordinary, I guess, from our point of view, in terms of the number of people that have looked to use that. We're not going to really evolve that further because there would be some finite timeframes. But we have really started to focus on what we see as many of the key documents that drive 80% of the orders that we see inside our own platform as well. So as we jump through, what I want to do is just share with you really where we're heading with all these documents. So I mentioned to you, we expect to have the large majority of these documents available and inside Simple Fund 360 by the end of this calendar year. So what you can see on the top here is that we have what we are calling these different sets. So to explain what that means, let's just go across to this next slide. And we, rather than adding ad hoc all different documents, we are now putting different documents online and making them available consistent with, I guess, a flow of or a theme or thread that comes with those type of documents. We know that it's no point setting up a pension commencement in there if we might need to have account-based pension rollbacks, or we might need TRIS to retirement phase, or other things that might not normally or might create a disconnect, because you might need those two documents to be done simultaneously. So the greens are obviously ones that we already have on the site and are currently available. These, again, going back to what I said at the very beginning, if this document is any of these documents, are available full stop. So you can, even as part of a subscription, go across to our Smarter SMSF platform and order them on there, and it will then naturally count to your subscription. But again, the intention is these are all being brought across, and where we have a situation whereby we complete that set, there's a couple that we might look at sort of pushing in a little bit quicker than we expected, that you can see in the bottom left-hand corner there. So our pension set, we're actually ahead of time. So we're actually hoping to roll out the wind-ups and maybe one of the constitutional or in-house asset agreements as well. So the idea here is just to give you an understanding of these continuous rollout of documents that are going to occur. The other thing to note is that we will also, and we're near completion of a new SMSF and company. So one order form does the two things for you as well. Then we move down to the bottom part, which is really some of the platform areas. So in this instance, there are a couple of pretty critical pieces around functionality that we are spending significant time, but it is a fairly substantial shift in the way in which our platform was built. So therefore, it's certainly taking a significant period of time. Now, any of you that have used our Smarter SMSF platform and any others would ordinarily know that there is the importance of having some form of saved functionality to enable you to save that document, go back and review. Now, our Smarter SMSF platform has been built on a one-to-one user basis. So what that means is that one email address is linked to that person, and therefore in organizations you really need to share that password because we need that as a centralized way of aggregating the orders that actually happen. Now, one, as you would be aware, within Simple Fund 360, it uses what I would refer to as a parent-child structure. So that parent-child structure is such that there is a primary account holder or the main subscriber, and then that individual has a series of staff members that utilize the platform. So whether that's you as that staff member, you as the primary user, and you've got obviously some controls around how that occurs. So this is something that we are just about to release our alpha version, and we have about half a dozen firms lined up to do beta testing, hopefully within the next week or so, so that it will allow for a primary account holder to then grant access to particular staff to then be able to utilize the subscription to do the orders. So if you've got 4 staff with a BGL, with BGL Simple Fund 360 access and or CAS, then you will be able to authorize those particular people to be able to access it or not. And this is different to within Simple Fund 360 because you can turn on or turn off the ability for someone to be able to see certain parts of the software. So if you don't want particular staff to access the documents area that Smarter SMSF offers, there is a simple button that can be clicked to turn off access. So there is 2 parts of this. It's what you want to control from within Simple Fund. However, also if you want that individual to be able to access the document preparation under the subscription, we will want you to register them as a user, and we are building out some of that control as we speak. So I've just got a little bit. One of the things that we're looking to now integrate into the Simple Fund 360 area of the website is for that primary user to have some ability to control, add individuals into the subscription that would ordinarily be available. So if you're only ordering documents on a pay-as-you-go basis, it really doesn't matter who has access or doesn't have access. So what this is then going to do is simply state who those individuals are and the ability to activate or deactivate. So if people come and go within the organisation, then you can naturally deactivate or activate additional people as time goes on. So we expect to, in that instance, add in, if I just go over to Simple Fund 360, on this page here, we will be adding some additional tabs and framework for you to then, and in particular that primary user, to be able to undertake particular tasks, in particular around the way in which an individual can access the subscription. So again, just be aware that is something that is coming. I know some of our members have been wanting that for some time. Unfortunately, it's a pretty big project for us because it does take it is a fundamental shift, I guess, to the framework in which our site is built on, and the large majority of sites as document platforms, to be honest, as well. So as I said, that is very much at the pointy end of where we're at. That's really just a couple of screenshots as to how close that actually is. And again, we'll be working with half a dozen or so people around a beta test for it to get some of that important feedback. So we are then continuing to work on some TFN and ABN integration work as part of that new fund setup. It'll also fold over into CAS 360 with trusts and so forth as well. And then we're also a fair way along in our automated deed update service. So I suspect we will then not only will roll that out initially on our Smarter SMSF platform, but then naturally fold that into Simple Fund 360, where you could also have that person subscribe from day one when they set up a new SMSF, or as part of the trust deed upgrade process as well. So let's really move down now and go across to the Simple Fund 360 screen, because I really want to get stuck into the actual site as opposed to walking you through a whole series of slides. So the first thing here you'll note now is we have a significant greater number, I should say, of documents that are available. So we did naturally extend all of our COVID-19 documents here through to the 31st of July, the COVID early release ones. We are allowing that to go all the way through to the completion of its process, which will be to the 24th of September. So it is our most used document this year now, even though it's only been for a short period of time. We did have our investment strategies that were higher than that, but that has really taken over, with some 28,000 SMSFs having had members dip into their superannuation savings now, according to the discussion I had with the Assistant Commissioner the other day. So the important parts to note here is obviously that you have the ability to get the description of information from that navigation. You can view sample documents. If we've got other information, you can naturally go and utilise that as well. So some of the things that, again, as part of our process of what's coming on board, we will list out the documents that are coming online next. So you will naturally see some of that information start to fold into here as well. So I might just go into one that I think is going to be really important now that you need to be putting in place for some of your clients. And this is this prospective election for clients that may be taking more than what would be the reduced minimum for this particular year. And you want to therefore treat any above minimum pension amount as an amount via lump sum or potentially as commutation. And again, if you missed the webinar I did with Steve Keating the other day from the ATO, I would suggest having a look at that and understanding the real importance of what I'm about to go through here. So as I said, this is what I would call baseline, our MVP in terms of this functionality. So if we can search over the top of that client list, we pick up the funds that we have, and then what you're going to see is that it populates a lot of the fund trustee-based information in the system. Quick thing to note here is that look for these tooltips. It may be something very simple, or it may be something to help unpack the complexity of the question, the technical issues that might evolve from it. The other thing I would always note is when the fund address comes in here, for it to be able to be utilised throughout the rest of the form, simply go to the end of it, press the space, and then it will verify that using our integration that we have with Addressify that validates addresses right across Australia, including unit numbers, suite numbers and levels, etc., etc. But having now done that and validating it there, you'll see that it now comes in here as a drop menu item. So just a little tip, I guess, from my point of view. But again, it's recognised here, the fund name by that choice, the address that's linked to the fund, the trustee that's in place, the name, the ACN, how many directors exist. We then choose where our address is going to be for the trustee meeting. We've got our directors in this instance. We can choose who the chairman will be. We choose our particular date here of the meeting. And then once we go onto the next page, we can start to choose, who's receiving the income stream, their address and the like. So as time progresses, again, we will see areas of this whereby the process to start a document like this might not be in the orders area. It might actually come from the pensions area or a pension review area to be able to create these sort of documents. So again, We've got different years, specifically because of this document, and the concession only relates to the 1920 and the 2020-2021 financial year. We have the limitation here about what it applies to. And again, we've got a tooltip here, the fact that the member might be running multiple pensions. So it may be that you're picking up a particular pension name here, allows you to put that information in. And then we're going into this important technical detail that I mentioned here as to why it's important in getting this in and getting this done prospectively. So the fact that for a valid commutation to occur, we need to ensure that that member request and trustee acceptance happens prospectively for a commutation to be valid, because if we don't document that accordingly, then the commutation is deemed to be ineffective and you wouldn't naturally get that transfer balance debit here. So if you want to sort of find out more about that topic, we've got plenty of information through our blog and other content that would do that. And then again, it allows you to choose, well, are we taking those above minimum, reduced minimum amounts as lump sums if they've got an accumulation account because they may have reached their transfer balance cap, or are we doing it as a partial commutation, or are we actually doing both here? So if I just assume that that's a commutation, again, we will always put in tooltips in here as to the relevant clause if you're using the Smarter SMSF deed. So again, in here, we can just put 25.1G and the rule, and then it will allow you to review all of the information that is here, and then whether you are a subscriber or whether you are ordering on a pay-as-you-go basis, the credit card information will be there and if there's a price there, it won't allow you to simply submit that order. You'd need to put in the credit card. If you are a subscriber, then you will simply be able to bypass that process and automatically lodge that order, and therefore, you know, a minute or so later, you then get access to that particular order as well. So that's an important document that I would be suggesting many of you, if you haven't been considering that already, that you naturally do so. It'll take you through to your completed orders page that you can see here as well. And this is combining not only the orders that I have on Simple Fund 360, but all the orders that I've done through the Smarter SMSF site as well. So the Smith SMSF there, if I go onto our site and completed orders, we should see that order form sitting inside here as well. So whilst that's, I'm just going to move back to the documents page. And you should be able to see, like I said, that information on both there. So the other one, and again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through each and every one of these particular documents. The other couple worth noting is that we now have our deed upgrades in here. We have put into the BGL team, the development team, about trying to capture more information within Simple Fund 360 about the history of upgrades, because it would then allow us to feed that information into the system here to be able to produce those particular documents. And the other one here is around, again, the pension commencement, whereby we do have a far more comprehensive set of documents here than what you may have ordinarily done within Simple Fund 360. So you can see within here, again, using that process of choosing the Smith fund, we are starting to then populate a lot of that fund member information and the like. So again, I would just suggest doing that little trick there and then working through all the relevant details in respect to the resolutions and the like. There's a couple of critical differences, I guess, why you would want to contemplate using these pension documents maybe over a more generic set. So one, of course, is if you are using a Smarter SMSF deed or even linking to another deed, there's going to be a far greater attachment using a set of pension rules that are driven by the rules of the fund. So in that instance, what we would have here is a scenario whereby we can allow you, as part of these pension documents, to set up additional features that would not otherwise be available within another trust deed. So you can use these documents whether you use the Smarter SMSF deed or not, but we do ask you some very specific questions to work out whether you are entitled to or whether you want to create a pension using our deed or not. So the other thing here is that our pension commencement documents don't just create account-based pensions, they create TRISs, they create account-based pensions and death benefit pensions. So as you work through the form, based upon certain parameters inside that form, what you will then start to do is, in this instance, if we put a pension commencement date of the 1st of July 2020 here, you're going to see that the member is 67, so it now does not allow you to choose a transition to retirement income stream because they have actually already satisfied the condition of release of attaining age 65. So in that instance, we have got some inbuilt smarts into this. One of the things that we are working on with BGL, we don't at this stage have the API endpoints that allow us to fill in all the members' information without doing a great deal of work around the trial balance. So Jeevan and his team are certainly building that information in. As I said, forms part of ultimately what we're trying to work with Simple Funds, with the Simple Funds 360 team to get as much of this information into the system as we possibly can to move from what is version 1 into version 2, etc., etc. So you'll then see here we've got whether you want to start with the entire balance or a lesser balance. So you can use this either A, after you've set up the pension within Simple Funds 360, but also spoken to members about the fact that they might want to do these documents prior to all that information being set up in the system as well. So if you're starting with the entire balance, it'll do your calculation. If you want to start with a lower purchase price, so in this instance, let's say it's $200,000 of the $215,000, you will then also, it will run those same calculations, do the same information around our reduced minimum here on that basis, and then form questions about how the benefit is going to be taken over the particular year and how much, and again, whether it's being paid under our deed, the Smart SMSF deed, or being paid under another deed. So it will, if you choose yes there, again, provides us with the detail, the power to be able to pay, so Rule 25 in this instance, but it will then allow us, by operation of choosing the Smarter SMSF deed, will align it and become a special rule of the fund. So what that means is that the pension documents effectively are annexed to the deed, and therefore we can make changes to those pension documents in the future if we want to, without necessarily having to stop the pension. So adding and removing a reversionary beneficiary is a good example there. And again, we can add reversionaries here, tells us who they are, and then we can fill in that detail. So again, working with BGL to produce that. And one of the key features of our deed is this concept of what we call a paramount document. So that is do you want, say, the reversionary status of this income stream and the form in which this income stream has been taken to take precedence, so therefore be paramount over any other document that may be or is currently produced by that member for the trustee to determine what happens in the event of their death. So it would remove any inconsistency between a binding death benefit nomination and a reversionary pension if there was a lack of clarity around how that would normally apply. So this paramount document here deals with that concept and makes it very clear that if this is the document that they wanted to be paramount and we did state that it was reversionary, then in that instance, that's actually what would happen. So we can apply that concept here if we actually want to do so. And then we have the ability to choose whether that asset is to be segregated or is to have all those assets remain as being pooled for the particular year. So you can choose specific documents if you want to do so, but I rarely see that happening. So again, the same concept here to wrap up the completion of this order. You get to review the documentation prior to submission, and then it will allow you, again, subject to whether it's on a PAYG basis or whether you are requiring a credit card. So in this instance, you can see no credit card here as under my subscription, so I can simply click order now, and allow me to carry on. So I'll just let that run for a second. And then what I will do is just go to the completed orders area, and I'll just show you a different pension document, obviously, whilst that one generates. It only takes usually 2-3 minutes at most. So if you're sort of half an hour down the track and you haven't seen anything, I suggest getting in contact with us to follow that up. So here's just a one that I was looking at yesterday, and it's obviously got a lot of scribble in it as we're just working on a couple of things. But ultimately, there's a few very important and key distinctions as to why these pension documents are very different and distinct from documents that you might naturally just generate out of Simple Fund 360. So, for example, we include things in here that don't require you to have to backdate the commencement of the income stream. So a really good example of this is if you're just completing tax returns for your SMSF clients, say in May of last year, prior to lodgement, and you were looking to establish pensions that went back to the 1st of July, you're going to see dates on those documents that are literally backdating. And we know that certainly puts the ability to claim ECPI at risk in that sort of basis. So what we do in here is very deliberate, following what the guidance says in tax ruling 2013-5, when a pension starts and stops, is that this process is requesting an initial oral request to commence that pension from that particular date with that particular value. Now, it then goes through and talks about whether you want to segregate, whether you want to nominate a reversionary, who that person is, and the conditions that sit around that. We then have a range of information that talks to the notification of that pension, the powers to obviously pay, the fact that it does become a special rule of the fund here and may be chosen as a paramount document. So they're the sort of things that will get pulled out of the actual order form when it is defaulted as no, where you're not using the Smarter SMSF deed. We're picking up components, we're picking up the calculation here, and then the resolutions that need to occur as part of the actual creation of an income stream for a member in an SMSF. So you can already see the depth of the information that we have in here, and helps really build out a step-by-step process as to what you need to be doing and ensuring that is happening as well. And then, of course, the notification that goes back to the member, and we get the member acknowledgement. Now, the other thing that we have in here is a full product disclosure statement, again, that the member would look to be utilising themselves, signing off and completing. So that is, I guess, a primary difference in the way in which our pension documents are created, as opposed to what you might generally see in Simple Fund 360. So you can see that Smith one is now being completed. It will send you an email confirmation of that as well for any of you that have done any orders on here, but you can also go into here and download as well. So the other thing to note on here with those that are subscribing, mine's a really bad example as an administrator, but subject to the subscription that you take out. So in this instance, if you took a subscription of a pack of 25, it will just do a natural counter and say you can create 24 left, 23 left, etc., etc. When you are down to less than 5, we will notify you of that decision and whether you want to simply see out that rest of the 5 for the year, or whether you then want to maybe upgrade the subscription, which we see a lot of then people naturally look to do. So again, that just explains the process of what is there. Again, we encourage you to continue to follow up on the documents that we do have available. As I said, we're doing things at the moment like upgrading the constitutions. I encourage people that do deed upgrades, if you do have corporate trustees in place, that the constitution would also be naturally upgraded as well, because you those documents do very much intertwine. So ensure that you're looking at that. We've made some recent changes to the cover letters. If you're looking at deed upgrades, you can use cover letters on our ticketed help, on our helps knowledge base is the word I was after. So you can go in to our knowledge base in here, and there is sample documents, which you obviously get taken to by clicking on these here. So it takes you to the same thing. But in here, we also have our upgrade. So we have an upgrade letter that you can use with your clients just as a document template to be able to go through and understand the reasons and rationale why an upgrade may be relevant or not. So again, you can download that and utilize it as you see fit. So, so there, again, just a couple of the features that we have in addition to, again, the fact that we've made our COVID documents free for the time being. And I suspect we're going to see some additional work done on a couple of these COVID measures. LRBA relief, for example, we'll be looking at building an extended relief document that follows the Australian Banking Association's relief that's been expanded for an additional 4 months. There is some Division 7A relief, which will link itself to the in-house asset loan relief and the payments that apply, and the ATO's looking at providing some additional documents for SMSF trustees that are there. And all these documents, as I said, really retain currency through not only myself and the internal team, but that document council that I spoke about earlier as well. So I guess just as we wrap up here, I just wanted to, again, share with you the, just make sure that we can see the right screen here. This one here. This one, yep. So the couple of things that I'd really encourage you to find out more about. Many of you may have experienced using the platform on a pay-as-you-go basis. Some of you already are subscribers. If you aren't sure as to the benefits of one way or the other, what we have built on the Smarter SMSF site is a documents calculator. And what that calculator looks to do is to help you to understand how or whether what the benefits of a subscription actually are. So if I just shoot across to here and go to the Smarter SMSF site and the docs calculator, what this is going to allow you to do is to simply put in some information about the number of funds that you may have already, the number of funds that you may have in accumulation phase, the number of funds that you may have in retirement phase, how many funds you might establish each and every year, how many you might take over, whether you set up LRBAs or not, and any other documents. So you can very quickly see here that based upon this, based upon the knowledge that we have, this sort of pack on this basis would have somewhere around 52 here. If we said that there's another sort of 20 other documents that might occur during the year, well then we're saying here that there's 72 documents that would be required. So our Smart 100 pack here at $4.50 a month, so you'd be paying an average of $75 per document. Now, if you really wanted to, you could go down here and put in a little bit more information if you wanted to help really work out what that return on investment is. So if you're charging $1,000 for the setup, you might be charging $300 for deed upgrades. You might be charging $2,000 for LRBAs. You might be charging, I don't know, $200 for those documents. You can start to see what that sort of revenue might look like, and then what the actual return on the investment would be. And obviously it's going to be very different based upon each and all of your different circumstances. So again, feel free to use that if you want to find out more. And again, as an organisation, we're more than happy to step through that with you and try and work out what would be most suitable to you as well. So as I said, I would encourage you to have a look at that further. If you do have any questions in respect to that process, please feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to do so. It is a fairly straightforward process through the shopping cart. And what we do find is a lot of people do start at that 25 or 50 and then get comfortable with the process and look to migrate up if they're doing deed upgrades. Investment strategies have, of course, been very, very heavily utilised with clients in that process. And then really starting to utilize it and understand, not only combined with our training as to the areas of importance, but making sure you're getting those I's dotted and T's crossed for your clients as well to ensure that ongoing compliance. So again, if you do have any other questions about that, please feel free to do so. other than that, we will leave that session there. Apologies for the cutout halfway in between. So for those of you that stuck it out, thank you. I think my son's rebooted the NBN here now, so I don't have to pair off my phone any further. But if you do have any other questions, please feel free to let me know. I'll make sure we'll sort of patch up this recording as well, and share that with you too. So other than that, if we don't have any other questions, we will leave it there. Thanks very much for taking the time out of your day, and look forward to catching up soon. Bye for now.